Welcome to Tunnel Talk, where we discuss everything indoor skydiving and tunnel flying. Today we're joined by Melissa Harvie, and we're chatting about Melissa's program, Supercharge. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you, Russell. Thanks very much for having me today.
So we'll get into some background about why the Supercharge program will benefit you and your flying, whether it be outdoors or indoors, competition or casual flying. But maybe, Melissa, first, if you can give people a little bit of an inkling to some of your achievements, some of your background.
Sure. Hi. Thank you. From a personal competitive point of view, two things come to mind. Representing Australia at the last World Meet in 2018 on the Gold Coast was a really definite high for me. As a member of Boomerang Betty, we achieved the highest ever Australian score over 10 rounds of 16.7 points in the FS 4-way female category. And we tied with the Australian mixed team to achieve an Australian record of 32 points in time on the same jump.
So that might give people a little bit of a feel for the person behind the program. You mentioned a couple of things that, what was one of the others?
Second one would be Aussie Bigways. So my journey started with Aussie Bigways in 2010 as a member of the Australian national record-breaking team, and we got a 115-way. And then again in 2015 we got a 119-way on another jump that event. The challenge was then for an even bigger formation in 2019, and we got it, 130-way.
And did you do those jumps in Australia, or...?
Ooh, sadly not. The whole Australian team travelled to Perris in California for 3 weeks to train and do the record jumps. We just don't have the aircraft or the organisational facilities here to manage an event like that.
So some of the feedback, I just thought I'd read out some of the some testimonials from people about your program, the Supercharge program. Some of the ones that jumped out at me. Jared Matthews, despite having 1,700 jumps, going back to basics was the best way to improve my flying and achieve my goal. I was on the record-breaking team in Perris in 2019. So with Jared's background, 1,700 jumps, no tunnel time, and his experience was mainly instructing and wingsuiting. So what most people would look at as an experienced skydiver, doing wingsuiting, doing instructing. I got into contact with Melissa and was blown away by how many bad habits I picked up.
Different disciplines require different techniques.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And on the closing comments of the testimonial, on reflection, despite having 1,700 jumps, going back to basics was the best way to achieve my goals. One of the testimonials that I had a bit of a laugh at, it says, be less shit. It's not the cost of doing it, it's the cost of not doing it.
Yep, thanks Kerry Hook for that one.
So skydiving since 82, around about 8,000 jumps, a lot of tunnel flying now, obviously, with the Supercharge program. Do you still enjoyable, challenging? What are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of tunnel time training 4-way as well, and I am pushing myself to push for the indoor nationals coming up soon in Australia. So that's a big goal for me, and also the coaching side of things is exciting because we're launching our Supercharge website so that we can really get out there to the community.
So superchargeskydiving.com
yes,
is where people can find you.
Yes, indeed.
So head to the website, find out more about Melissa and the Supercharge program. So what sort of goals and activities can people utilise Supercharge for?
Yep. This year we've got a bunch of fun coming up in Australia. We really have. So people, get training. Do you want to be in a team for indoor nationals, as an example? We're going to run a program to get blast teams together, A teams together, come and compete. Maybe you want to join the Bigway community as well. We're running 4 fun days in Maruya at the end of December. So get in touch with me. I can connect you into that community too. And we have a really important event too, running for a total break sequential record for the new Australian national record. If you want to get involved in that, you've still got time to build the skills to get ready.
So the Supercharge program, obviously, it blend in the context as it relates to outdoor skydiving and people achieving their goals and upskilling. You work at different drop zones, running different events. What are some of the other events you've got coming up?
So this year's exciting. We've got a new event that's been organised in partnership with Sydney Skydivers, so 1300 Skydive, that's Sydney. And we're actually partnering, or we're joining Tunnel Time with Airtime for a sequential squad training experience for Bigway participants who want to qualify for the national record. And we're running a series of camps out there at the drop zone, which is proving to be really successful.
And a question, you may not have got this far in your planning yet, but there's a new 32-foot tunnel opening, or has opened recently. Have you even anticipated how you might use that for Bigway training?
Oh my goodness, the world's the oyster, isn't it? Yes. I think we need to get our record sorted for the end of this year and then put some plans in place. But that would be a fantastic training facility for sure. I wonder how far you can dive in that tunnel, actually.
We were catching up with Team Ewax recently, and they said it was just, you can imagine how big a 32-foot tunnel is, 104 foot high.
Wow.
And they said they were just blown away by the size of it until you actually step in that tunnel. So, I mean, crikey, things are changing all the time, right? So if you're out there and you're a skydiver or somebody looking for a new sport, tunnels have evolved so much from... And I think the key message to people is sometimes people feel a little bit anxious or shy about that. Maybe that's too far advanced for me. Maybe I can't achieve that. I think the message would be to people, don't be shy about stepping forward and pushing yourself. Don't be shy about stepping forward and saying, look, this program can help me achieve my goals.
Yep, tunnels make things so efficient. Yep. You know, we can really tailor and target the program, and people with very few jumps can actually achieve great things. And it's not about jump numbers anymore, not thanks to the tunnel.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think you were talking to me at one point about some of the outdoor Bigway stuff, and the high percentage of people who ended up being able to, in many years ago, Bigways used to be something that were thought of as, you have to be lots of jumps, hot shot skydiver. But you were saying to me how many people were able to get on those Bigways because they went through the Supercharge program and upskilled.
That's right. Nearly 50% of the team that achieved the 130-way record in Perris last year had been supercharged, and some of them only had a few hundred jumps. Yeah. We can practice amazing things in the tunnel, like tracking, for example. And learning to track in the tunnel actually speeds up your learning curve exponentially, so that then you can go and flat track in a big way in skydiving.
And I think most people might not think as the tunnel is somewhere you can track, but it is quite amazing what skills you can practice and achieve in the tunnel.
Absolutely, and we've worked in partnership with people like Kermit, who's the CI there in Penrith, and he's helped us devise the type of training that we can do to help people track and also to dive.
Yep. So I think don't be shy, head to the website, check out what Melissa and Supercharge can offer. So how did your experiences, your background, how did all of that lead you into using tunnel flying in your program, or developing the program and using the tunnel?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I was in America with the Aussie team, I realized that people were being benched, so taken off the team, because they didn't have the flying skills to actually do what was being asked of them. I was also coaching a number of four-way teams at the time, and realized that without the ability to control levels, proximity, turn, translate on the spot, people couldn't make the moves that we were asking of them as a coach. So it really inspired me to actually create coach programs that focused on personal flying skills and considered everybody's unique physical and mental situation as well as their goals in the sport. And so Supercharge was born through all of that.
When was the first opportunity you had to fly in a tunnel, and when did you discover the tunnel and what potential it might have for your program or developing your program?
Okay, so my first experience in the tunnel was on Orlando. So I started skydiving before tunnels and AFF and tandems were invented, and by the time I had 100 jumps on a round canopy and a back-to-back system, I just was only able to touch somebody in free fall. So when I went to Orlando in the 90s, with my teammates from Scotland, we actually trained with airspeed in the UK team at the time, Sebastian Excel, and the learning curve was exponential because it allows you to focus on skills without the distraction of weather and aircraft issues. So back in the 90s.
So it's been something in the order of 15 years since you first discovered the tunnel, thought about using it, developing that led you into developing the Supercharge program. Has the way you're training, how you're using the tunnel developed and changed over those 15 years?
Absolutely. It's changed with the quality of the air that the tunnels are actually now offering for your flight. And it's also changed with the techniques that the world-renowned coaches and teams have actually evolved, learning how to use the air with a great deal more precision and power. So everything just sort of evolves from there, and it keeps building too.
Yep. So the Supercharge program, I think the point is this isn't just for high-level skydivers. Who is the program for? It's for a wide range of people.
It is, absolutely. Supercharge is for everyone. So AFF and B-Rel training is absolutely fantastic in our country. It teaches you how to fall, how to land, how to survive. It's an absolutely fantastic start. So then whether you want to enjoy more successful jumps with friends, get competitive, be invited, included in events, like any athlete, you need to train, and personal body flight is kind of where it all starts.
Yep. So you're involved in training people everywhere, everything from people who are they're trying to get their A license, they're into their B-Rels, to the 4-way teams, to Bigways. It's that whole range of skill levels you're dealing with and offering this program for.
It is. We can personalize it, but it's based on a fundamental structure, bringing together best practice flying techniques into a sort of a signature learning plan that we can then personalize to reflect your goals, your physique, your mental attitude, everything.
And I think we'll list a whole bunch of those testimonials in the show notes and on the blog. But I think the testimonials that people have put forward attest to the quality of the program, but what people are getting out of it and letting them achieve their goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really lucky that we've been running this program now for about 4 years. So I'm in a position now of sort of coming out to the world saying, hey, look, we've got something tried and tested here. We actually run pre-work with people. So it isn't just a turn up at the tunnel, pay for my time, and what do you want to work on? We actually do pre-work and coaching calls before a camp or a clinic. And we get a chance to understand each other and what sort of language and approach is going to work for people. So we actually have a huge collateral, if you like, an experience that we can shape to get best bang for your buck.
You do put a lot of pre-work in, pre-planning. It's very individualised for each group that comes through.
It needs to be, because we're all different, Russell. I mean, you and I are very different body shape and size. You know, people are taller, shorter, maybe they have a physical impediment. My teammate Kate Vaughan, she always talks about her T-Rex arms. Everybody's different. So the techniques are there, but you can't just say, do this. It can't just be a follow me situation, because we all need to apply things in a different way. So we personalise the training.
So if we have a look at the wide range of people participating in the Supercharge program, can you think of a few of the highlights or the successes of some of those people and their achievements?
Absolutely. There are so many, but yes, let me pick a few. So at different ends of the range, we've got people who came with very few jumps and met each other through Supercharge, and in that process created teams that went on to compete. And I was lucky to compete with a team called the Bin Chickens, and we actually won the national medal at an A at the Nationals in 2018. So that's one success story. They've all gone on to do bigger and better things since then too. You then have people who literally are starting in the sport and maybe have challenges just off their B-Rels, and they really want to do their star crests. But in order to do their star crest, they need to finesse their skills. So a lovely lady called Christy Guy, who's just been working with me recently, and she's developed a new power to her flying posture and ability to exit strongly and actually fly relative to others, which is a fantastic step for her, and she'll go on to bigger and better things as well. And then one last one at the other end of the extreme would be the lovely John Leachy from Queensland. So one of our older participants in the Aussie Bigways team, and he really focused himself and worked really hard and created the type of skills that allowed him to actually be on the 130-way record in Perris. It was amazing.
And I think to remind people, like we're talking about, what may not first occur to people. You know, we're talking about utilising the tunnel indoors to advance all those people's their goals, their aspirations outdoors.
Yes, I mean it's for tunnel flyers. Supercharge is for tunnel flyers as well as skydivers,
Yep.
And everybody's got different goals. But in the sport of skydiving, the actual free fall time is a critical time. That's when you tend to score your points. You know, safety then comes from how you manage your exit as well, how you manage your canopy control, and all of those things have to combine together. But just being able to use the tunnel for that efficient athletic training in those technical flying skills gives you a huge benefit when you then put it into the air.
And I think it's the same, any sport, any activity. If you put work into the fundamentals and the basics, you'll reap the rewards.
Indeed. We have a strange attitude here in Australia sometimes of, you just, let's do more. And one of the fantastic testimonials was, well, fun jumps were fun until they stopped being fun anymore. And then I wanted to be able to sort of, fly and participate. And as I said before, like any athlete, you need to train. So skydiving is no different. It is a sport.
So the Supercharge program is it's a fairly structured, very well thought out program. Give people a little bit of an idea. I believe they can either do a camp or a clinic. Can you give us an idea of the difference and what's involved?
Sure. So as you say, it's structured. So we've worked out a series of incremental levels and modules that make sense to like build a house effectively, build your flying skills. So you can build your flying skills by coming for a 30-minute tunnel experience, which has a prior coaching call where we go over materials and information and talk about how we're going to plan the time. Or you can actually come and do a really intensive 3 days. So it's a 3-day experience working with 3 other participants, so 4 people and 2 coaches. So it's very hands-on. And quite intensive with workshops and various learning discussions. And again, we do pre-work with that. And that tends to involve about 75 minutes of your what you pay for in the tunnel. And then you share some of that time as well. So the advantage of being in the tunnel is you can do joint exercises and get more bang for your buck.
Do you find between camps and clinics, does either suit a particular participant or their skill level, or is it pretty much open to either?
Oh, you're right. Each one of us learns slightly differently. So one of the things I'd suggest is get in touch, and we'll have what I call a discovery call. So we'll understand what your goals are. So it may well be that a clinic is all you need to actually refresh your skills if you've got some experience, or you just want to pump up the volume a bit in your power. Or it may well be that the camp is the best way for you to actually bring on board new information and actually get some repetition. So it kind of is horses for courses, and that's where having a conversation up front would actually help us work out what suits you best.
So I'm sure once people head over to the website, you'll have a bunch of info there, but just to give people a little bit of an idea, so we've already had a look at, it's open to anyone, all skill levels, novice, advanced. Do people need to come, do they need to come as a group? Can they come as an individual?
Come as an individual, absolutely. If you're in a team already, then we found great success with taking full teams through the Supercharge camp, and that leads into fantastic results for their 4-way. But we will definitely help partner people up and put together groups for the camps. And we run the camps with different skill levels on the camps, and that means that you can also watch and learn from other people and see what's possible.
So obviously a big part of, I guess, competition skydiving or even Bigways, exits are a critical point to the start of the skydive. I guess traditionally people might not think of the tunnel as somewhere you can practice exiting an aircraft. But how does the Supercharge program relate to or help people develop those sort of skills?
Oh, that's a good question. So 2 aspects. One, just basic body flight, having structure and control on your body parts, knowing how your mechanics actually work, and then talking about how to present those into the relative wind when an aircraft is flying. So they translate very well into an exit situation, either as a solo flyer or as a team. But also in the tunnel, the relative wind is just coming up, so it's the same concept. And what you can do is practice entries into the tunnel, which are the same sort of logic as exiting an aircraft, and learning how to present your body into the relative wind. So we can actually practice that too in the tunnel and bring that to life.
And I think, like anything, the more people become aware of not just fighting the wind, but I mean you're flying with the wind and using the wind, And the tunnel is really good for that sort of skill development.
Absolutely. So here am I. I'm a very early learner of back flying and sit flying, and my coach Mark Lee was big on sort of helping me feel the air, and it really makes a difference if you can spend time in the tunnel and actually learn how your body affects the air and how the air affects your body and how to take advantage of that. It's a fantastic advantage in the air.
And I think you can see the more people flying in the tunnel, it goes from being not very aware of what the wind's doing, and then all of a sudden you start to go, okay, you can feel the wind, you can feel what it's doing across your body, and then you're using that to fly.
Yeah, and it's all about finesse. So when we learn in AFF and B-Rels, there's nothing wrong with what we're taught. It's absolutely fantastic. And then all we're doing is really finessing the use of our body parts so that we can achieve greater precision and power and control. So using the tunnel for that to learn is just a huge, steep learning curve and very cost efficient.
And I think especially once you're in the tunnel with a group, 4-way, you're splitting the cost.
Absolutely. Yep, and that's why, just as a point, the camp is actually good value for money, because once we've got the foundational body posture right and the mechanics working, then we can share the time. So you get more time for your money in the camp.
Yep. I think as tunnel flying develops, how people are learning to use the tunnel indoors more as it affects their outdoor flying or their indoor flying if they're indoor flyers. Initially, maybe drop zones, skydiving operators might have looked at a tunnel as something maybe less relevant to their business, but I think it has such a big impact on people's skills, their training, and then they're back to the drop zones, putting into practice what they've learned in the tunnel.
Yeah, I think the attitude is starting to change, Russell, because, if we take Supercharge as an example, we're not here to conflict with the drop zones. We're actually here to partner with the drop zones. So is the fact that we can actually help each other out. So they produce fantastic safe skydivers out of their AFF and B-Rel programs, and then I can help them finesse their flying so they can go back and do their Starcrest, and then they can get involved in 4-way teams, then they can do some more tunnel, then they can get involved in Bigway. So it really is, we need to bounce and use the facilities available to us to help people stay in the sport.
And I think the more skilled people are, the more confident they feel, the more jumps they're going to do, the more they're going to get involved in at the drop zone, or the more opportunities they have to participate in more activities at drop zones.
That's right. There's so much available now in our sport, and the tunnel just helps finesse those skills that give you an opportunity to make your jumps more successful, whether it's just having fun with friends, which is fantastic, and achieving the plan that you set out for, or whether it's scoring lots of points and being on the podium. Everybody's got a different goal.
Superchargeskydiving.com. Head to the website and find out more about Melissa's program.
Thank you.